only been on the bus for like several minutes until we got to the next stop. And when the driver got to the stop, there was a guy standing outside the bus with two women. The women got on first. But just prior to the driver opening the door, I could hear this guy outside yelling and cursing. He was angry about something, other than bus fare. But once the ladies got on and sat down, this gentleman got on the bus and he put in his money, but not enough. He came on the bus cursing the driver. And the driver told him it was not enough. He had to put in more money, so he was quiet for a while. Then he put his money in. Then he started cursing the driver. Once again, asking him for his ticket. The driver was pretty cool for the whole deal. This guy, he challenged the driver and he said, "Hey, you want some?" or something like that. Next thing I know, he started spraying with the mace. The front of the bus filled up with mace, and people ran to the back when they seen this happen, and the driver tried to fight him off. But eventually, as soon as the driver hit the floor, he just started cutting him like some kind of psycho. I've seen a lot of stuff in my life, but I never seen nothing like that. I didn't know what to do but react. First I didn't know what it was that he hit him with until I seen him go down. He got cut and I seen blood. Then I knew that it was some kind of sharp object. So I had to go out and help the driver and get this guy off the bus, not for that, because people were choking off the mace. I started choking off the mace once I got closer to the front of the bus. It started to get to my eyes and my throat too. And just to get him off that bus was my main goal, so people can get off and they could breathe. I distinctly hearing one lady say she had asthma. And I just, get this guy off the bus, get him out. He tried to cut me once again. He tried to cut me once I dropped the rack that I had the lady give me, but he took off. I went back on the bus to help the driver, try to flush his eyes out, see where he was bleeding, if I could stop any bleeding. And at the same time, I called 911. I don't know. I can't understand why people do stuff like this. I've been riding this bus for 4 years. And those 4 years, I've seen drivers get yelled at, threatened. I've seen it happen to even other passengers. I was at a bus stop and I had a guy yelling racial slurs at me and trying to sick his pit bull on me. And I called the cops once I got home because my bus, it was the last bus, so I got on the bus. And it's just bizarre. And I'm a vet. I don't like guns. I had a combat job. But I feel like I need to carry one. I don't want to. I've had one, I sold it to the gun shop because I don't want to, I just don't want them around me. But in situations like this, I wish I had one, but even then, if I had to use it, I would not have shot Mr. Ambrose to kill him. I would probably would just wounded him and let the police take care of the rest. So even with a gun, you don't have to kill a person. Sometimes you just scare them off with it, or you can just wound them. But weapons, it's just hard to say. You see so many people getting hurt, kids, in the schools. You see, you remember the lady back in the parking lot, happened things like that, and it saddens me. And when I heard about the one driver who first got killed, and I thought about that guy, and I fear for his life just as much as he did. And I'm sorry, I just didn't react faster, which I felt I could have probably moved faster when I saw the mace. But people were starting to come back to the bus, and I had to get past them. But I really wish I could have, been closer and react much faster. Maybe we never got cut at all.
John, he yesterday when we talked to him in the hospital, he was doing well. He's in good spirits.
Thank God.
And he was speaking to us, and he was telling us about the story, and he was totally composed. But the minute we brought you up, he lost it. He cried. He was very upset, and just so grateful and thankful that you were there.
Well,
how does that make you feel?
Well, I didn't sleep much that night. I went to work, and I only stayed for like an hour and a half because I couldn't really focus on my job. And I was kind of sleepless that night, and I thought about him. My prayers went out to him and his family. I even prayed for Mr. Ambrose. But, like I said, I thought about it, and I almost got a tear in my eye thinking about it. And I was getting calls even from my daughter in Atlanta. People were calling me and asking me, was I okay? I didn't even know my daughter found out that quickly. People asked me, am I all right? She didn't know I was taking a bus. She said, oh, you take the bus? I said, yeah, I sold my car and everything. I'll get another one eventually. But Mr. Prophet, my heart goes out to him. He's a fellow vet. He served this country just like I do. And the way I look at it, as far as veterans are concerned, I feel that our job is never over protecting the country or the citizens of this country. You know, that's our job. And we swore in to do that, and that's something that really sticks with us vets. We do.
You said you noticed this man when he got on the bus. Did you kind of keep an eye on him during the ride, if it lasted that long?
I kept an eye on Mr. Ambrose from the time I heard his voice. He was standing outside the bus and all the vulgar language. I kept an eye on him. And I didn't know that he pulled out mace because his back was kind of turned at that time. So when he pulled out the mace, I didn't actually see that until I saw spray going in the air. And some lady said, "Oh, it's mace or something," and she started coughing. I didn't know he had a box cutter until I seen the driver go down. So it was all, everything happened so quickly. But I tried to keep my eye on him, and I felt that, well, if something were going to happen, I was going to try to get between him and the driver, and something did.
Do you think that if you hadn't stepped in when you did, or at all, things would have been different?
I think that Mr. Prophet wouldn't even be here. That's what I think. That's my opinion. I really believe that gentleman would not be here, and that's another thing that saddens me, and it's trying to get into me right now, is that I can't,
Okay, take your
I don't
time.
know. I just don't know what else to say. I just can't take this. I don't even want to ride the bus anymore, but I got to get back and forth to work. My wife rides it, and she gets off at night places, and I worry about it. And I worry about myself as well, but when I see people like that, I put myself aside to help them. And a lot of times, last night I heard 2 gunshots behind me. I don't think they were directed at me, but I think that it was just the thought. I didn't jump, I wasn't scared, anything like that, because it's like the norm. In my neighborhood, you hear gunshots. Just like in New York, it's the norm that people hear explosions. They're not even afraid anymore, and I'm not afraid, but I'm concerned about other people who don't know what to do and who doesn't have anyone to step up for them.
Do you think more could be done when it comes to security on HART buses in this city?
Well, there is, but it's going to have to be a little bit more technology into that, because it's going to take more than a shield, because although that shield provides some protection, I don't think it provides enough protection. But like I said, it's going to have to be a little more technology, and more people are going to have to step up to be aware of things like that, and more public announcements, things like that. People have to be educated into things like this. It takes time, but I believe it can be done. And public transportation in general, this guy could have either been riding with an Uber driver, a Lyft driver. He could have been in a cab, on a train, on a plane, anywhere. People like that, they're everywhere. You never know when they're going to come out of the woodworks, and they're there. So to make public transportation safe for everyone, it's going to take a lot of doing, and a lot more technology, a lot more awareness. And the companies are going to have to step up, and they're just going to have to invest. If you want that safety, you're going to have to invest. So that's much I can say about that part.
Yeah, so HART has been trying to make some of these investments following the death of Mr. Dunn in May. They're in the process of outfitting the buses with these shields. Unfortunately, the bus Monday did not have one, or Tuesday. They also have the cameras on board. Now
Right.
every bus has a camera, and that's new. To you, though, as a writer, you said you've been writing this route for 4 years. When you see these changes happening, does it go any distance towards making you feel safer, or it still feels not enough?
Well, it makes the driver a little safer. It doesn't really help the passenger. There's no shields around us. There was a lady, she got off the bus just for a second, to take a cigarette break, and there's another passenger on the bus. He snatched her purse and ran off with it. So, so there's a lot of things. If you think about, the shield doesn't protect everyone. It gives the driver some sense of protection, but not total protection.
Some suggestions, other suggestions that they had, that bus drivers, and especially after Thomas Dunn, and riders had, were, maybe having somebody that had some sort of training to be on the bus, every bus, and ride along with the passenger area.
Right.
And then something that, and I know you were just talking about concealed weapons and things, but something that Mr. Prophet had mentioned was, if you're trained and you have the ability to carry, that maybe you should, in terms of the drivers.
Well, I've thought about that in a sense, and I noticed that they have armed security at some of the, bus stations, which makes people feel safer. On the bus, that's questionable too. I know drivers need some protection on the bus, but, hoping that he would never have to use that pistol on the bus, his weapon, and some other passenger, it could ricochet and hit some other passenger. So there's a lot of things you consider, right, with that notion. I said, being a veteran using weapons, and I train with like every assault weapon the military trained me with. And these guys know, any officer know, a bullet will ricochet and anyone can get hit. So we don't want no one to get hit on the bus. But these drivers, they have to sign some kind of protection for themselves. So if you're trained to do the right thing, but there are some scenarios that you can put a driver in. If there's a shield, and let's say, for an example, this driver would have had a weapon, hypothetical situation, and there was someone like Mr. Ambrose, once again, he could reach around that shield and spray pepper spray. The driver would have not too much chance to use his weapon still. So there's a lot of scenarios you have to, put in, consideration when you talk about using a weapon, and which means that Mr. Ambrose could have took that weapon.
How much time, it's always so hard to judge time when we're in a moment, but from when you heard his voice to the beginning of this altercation to, you getting him off the bus, how much time would you say passed during that?
I say maybe about several minutes. I know the bus showed up a few minutes late that day, probably some traffic delays, and when I looked at the time, last I seen, I saw 2:35 was at the time I last seen. And I can't remember, but I think maybe several minutes may have passed by, because Mr. Ambrose held up the bus just talking for like a minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes, and people said, "Come on, we got to go." I said, "Hey man, I got to go to work." Before I knew it, he was spraying the driver.
And how long would you say that your interaction, your tussle, and the back and forth between you and him was?
It was probably no longer, maybe like about 30, maybe 40 seconds. I finally got him out. My thought was just to get the passengers off so they could breathe. The back door could not be open, and he had the only, exit blocked.
Right.
And I had to get him out of the way.
And what branch of military are you, sir?
Army.
Army. And you mentioned you were on your way to work. Where do you work?
Skipper Smokehouse.
Oh, nice.
And what would you say to other passengers who, may see your interview and may see the heroic act that you did? What would you say to other folks who ride? Do they need to be the eyes and ears for the driver?
Well, yes, it does make sense. Everyone needs to be vigilant, and pay attention to their surroundings. And like I say, that's one of the things that I was trained as a military person, pay attention to your surroundings, be vigilant of everything. I've always do that. And I try to notice everything that goes around me, even if I think it's a safe zone. You still have to pay attention. And I think passengers should do that too, because they never know when they're in jeopardy.
Mr. Prophet called you his angel yesterday.
He's a prophet. So prophets have to be watched out for, So if I'm the angel for the prophet, then thank God. He's a good guy, and I thank him for getting us back and forth to work. His job is really important to me. And like I said, he said he wants to meet me. I'm looking forward to meeting him too. It made me cry. I was watching his interview on television, and I had a tear to my eye then, and my wife said, "Oh, you're a hero. Everyone says you're a hero." I said, "My name is John. Everyone wants to be calling me hero. I don't even know my first name anymore." But I would really love to meet Mr. Prophet, and my prayers went out to both him and his family. I always pray, and he's going to be in my prayers until the end. And like I say, I pray for Mr. Ambrose too, for what good it may do, But like I said, I don't want anyone who rides the bus to feel that you're going to be in danger. I mean, there's danger everywhere, but don't blame HART. They can't be there for everything. They can't control a person's actions. You know what I'm saying? So don't be afraid to ride the bus, and don't be afraid to speak up, and don't be afraid to stand up, because that's what makes it safer for everyone. Not just the driver, but for the passengers as well. And that should go out throughout your neighborhoods and throughout the city. Look out for each other, and it makes it safer.
You said your wife rides the bus too, and sometimes you worry about her safety, especially following Mr. Dunn's death in May. Did you two talk about that? Did you talk about your experience on the bus, your safety on the bus, or, you know?
Well, my wife, she's talked about some things about, she felt that she's being followed by, at times, and those are the times I wish I could have my car and I could, go pick her up, but I don't. And there's times that, she goes out to the casino, have her fun, but the bus would take, that's a long trip from where we live. And I just don't like her out in the evening, like that. And there's times that when she gets off at night, times change, the hourly sign, it gets dark quicker. Mm-hmm. My wife, she works downtown. And so I worry about her commute as well.
How long are both of your commutes?
Well, when I was driving, it was 18 miles round trip to take my wife to work, and you see I work off Skipper Road. She's downtown Tampa. Mm-hmm. She's at the arena, so you see that's across town. That's almost at Bears. So that's a very long commute anyway, and our time, the way we work, that's one reason I thought about changing jobs, because of my hours. That I want to be able to get home with my wife and be able to pick her up at certain times. I want to get into that motion. But like I say, the times that we work, she can get up and go to work before I can, and I'll leave, and then she gets home before me, but it's dark when we both get home.
I was just wondering how long your bus rides were. I mean, I'm sure you spend a lot of time on the bus every week.
Well, yeah, we both have to transfer to 2 buses, and I have the holdover time. But I say, if I had to think about my commute time, it would probably be no more than like combined. If it was 1 bus, maybe 30 minutes, but I have to take 2 buses. And same with my wife, she has to transfer to 2 buses as well.
Last question?
Anything else you want to say?
I'm fine.
Okay. You did a great job. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I don't know, I was just,
You did great.
but thank you very much.